What's going on, creators? Anthony here, and welcome to the Capcut Masterclass. This is going to be our first video, a very brief overview of how the application works. For those of you who have never edited a video before, definitely tune in. Okay, so on my computer, I'm going to open up Capcut by just searching for the application. Now here we have recent projects that I've been working on, but we're going to start fresh and just click New Project. Okay, so this is the Capcut interface, and it's primarily made up of 4 windows, 3 at the top and 1 at the bottom. Now, working our way through these, up here in the top left, we have what is now the media pool. It does have other tabs here like audio, text, stickers, effects, and more. We're going to cover those later on in this course, but right now, let's just import some videos. So I can click import right here. Now that's going to bring up this window where we're going to go and find the clips that we want to import. Now I have a little folder saved called Italy Hike. I'm going to select these 3 clips and import them. So now you can see this is where our clips are stored in CapCut. I can click on any of these, and this is actually going to bring us to the player right here, which is the central window at the top. This is for previewing back clips that we've imported, and it's also for playing back the primary video that we're editing. And that brings us down to the bottom window here, which is the timeline. All video editing programs work the same, where we have one primary timeline. That's where we drag our clips into. We can trim them, cut them, edit them together, and create our final finished product. So to actually start, we're going to take our first clip here and just drag it down into the timeline. And now you can see we have this right here, which is our playhead. It indicates where we are in the clip. If I hit the space bar, we're just going to play through this video, and everything looks good. Now, if we want to bring in our second clip, we could do the same thing as before, just come up and drag it in, or we can actually be specific and choose just a small section of the clip. Now you can see it's highlighted here, and if I come over to the left-hand side, I can create an endpoint by dragging this little window here just to the part of the clip that we want to pull in. So that's our endpoint, and now we can drag the end to wherever it is we want the clip to stop. So right there, we've defined our little selection. I'll click on that and now drag that into the timeline. And you can see we can hit play and they'll just play one into another. And then finally, we have our third clip. I'm going to start it right around here once Courtney comes out from under the bridge. So we've defined our selection and I'll bring it into the timeline. So now that we've got our clips arranged on the timeline down here, a couple very basic features of the timeline. If you ever want to zoom in or zoom out, you can come over here in the top right corner and use this little tool right here. We can zoom in to make more fine detail adjustments or zoom out if we want to see some more space. If we want to drag clips around and rearrange them, it's as simple as selecting your clip and moving it in the timeline to rearrange things. Now let's say you want to shorten a clip. That's what we call trimming. If I select this first clip on both the end and the beginning, I can grab it and actually just slide and get rid of some space or add some more of the video back in. That's called trimming. If we want, we can also create a cut point in our video. So let's say we only wanted this first half of the clip right here. We want to delete this second half. All we need to do is come up to the timeline control right here for split, click it, and now we've split that clip into 2. I can select that back half and hit delete. Now, just like most applications on the internet, if I want to undo what I just did, I'll hit Command or Control Z, and that adds the clip back in. And then we can do it again, and that gets rid of our cut point. What's even faster than coming up to this button and hitting the actual split button is right there. You can see it says Control+B. That's the keyboard shortcut to add a split or cut in our clip. So if I'm just over here, and wherever the playhead is, if I hit Command or Control B, it's going to create that cut point, which I think is a very fast and efficient way to edit. Now, for the time being, we'll hit Command Z just to undo that. And while we're still on the timeline, there are some more features that we can cover. Up on the far left right here, we have the tool that we're actually using. Right now, we're using the Select tool, but there's also the Split tool, the Select Left tool, and then the Select Right tool. Select is really straightforward. You just click on stuff and that's what you're selecting. The Split tool or the Blade tool allows us to create a cut point anywhere we hover our mouse. You can see here, I'm just creating cut point after cut point after cut point. Helpful if you obviously wanted to make a ton of cut points and maybe delete portions of your video, but for the time being, we'll hit Command Z and go back. Then after that, we have Select Leftward. That means when you use this tool and you select a clip, it's going to select that clip and anything to the left. So we'll zoom in on our timeline here. And if I hit this middle clip, it's selecting that and anything to the left. If we change the tool to select right, it's going to do the opposite. Select that clip and anything to the right. This is helpful if you're editing a lot of clips at once, like a long YouTube video. Now, each of these have keyboard shortcuts associated with them. For instance, if you wanted to get the select tool back up, all you'd have to do is hit A, and that brings us back. Now, a couple other really helpful tools here. We obviously have the split feature, which we just covered, but we also have delete left and delete right. These are really simple. Basically, think of it wherever your playhead is. If you do delete left, it's going to delete everything from the playhead to the left. So what I've highlighted right here is going to get deleted when I hit this button right here, delete left. Now we'll hit Command Z, and obviously, like everything, I would highly recommend memorizing these keyboard shortcuts. Instead of coming up and hitting this button, you could just hit Q on your keyboard. Now the opposite of this is delete right. So if we move our playhead, everything to the right of our playhead up until the next cut point, which is right here, this is all going to get deleted. So instead of actually hitting the button, we can see that the shortcut for delete right is W. I'm going to hit that on my keyboard, and we've deleted that portion of the clip. Now, while we still have this clip selected, we can obviously delete it. We can freeze frame it, which essentially creates a frozen frame here if we wanted to stop time. I'll hit Command Z. We can reverse this clip. If we select this, it's going to load, and now it will actually flip the clips, so it'll play backwards. You can see here now the clip is obviously playing backwards. We'll hit Command Z to go back for now. This button allows us to mirror the clip, so it just flips it if we wanted to have Courtney walk in a different direction. Up next, we have rotate. So this is just going to do a 90-degree rotation very quickly. Up next, we have the crop tool. If we wanted to essentially like shrink our video and maybe reframe it on our subject, we could do that. So now it's a little bit more zoomed in, but we'll hit Command Z for now because we don't need to do that. And then last but not least, we have the remove filler words feature, which is associated with the Pro membership. For the time being, we don't even need to worry about that. Now, last but not least, with the timeline here, we do have some buttons down here. If you wanted to record a voiceover, you would select this. Up next, we have the main track magnet. So right now it's selected, and if I move any of these clips, you can see that it's always just going to magnet right back to the end. I can't create any open space in here. But if we turn this off, I can now drag the clip, and it's no longer going to magnetically attach one to the other. Normally, I'll leave that on when we're just getting started. Up next, we have the auto snapping feature right here. It just makes sure that your clips always snap exactly to the next clip or the clip before it. I will usually leave that on. And then we have the preview axis, which right now we don't have it enabled. The only way to play through the video is to drag the playhead or hit the actual space bar to play. When we have this enabled, anywhere we hover our mouse is actually going to play through as if it were previewing for us. I usually leave that off. One more thing you should know about the timeline is the fact that it works with different layers. So right now, you can see on my screen, we're only dealing with one primary layer. But let's say we hit a clip we wanted to overlay on top of this clip. All we need to do is select one of the clips, bring it up a layer, and now we can place it there. And you'll see that when I play through this, whatever's on top is always given priority. So this clip will play first, and then as the playhead comes over to that next clip, it will now come up on the timeline. You can see how it transitions right there. In the same way that we have layers for video, we actually also have layers for audio, which we'll touch on when we get to music and sound effects. But just know if you did come up to the audio tab here to grab a song, you would bring that down. And now you can see the song lives on the layers beneath the video. Just like first coffee in the morning wakes me up. And just like videos, we could create multiple layers of audio by dragging our clips and creating new layers. And just so you're aware, there are some features over here on the left side of the timeline. Namely, we have mute, and then we have hide track, and then we have lock track. So I actually have all of these layers muted because there actually is some audio associated with these clips and I didn't want it to play through, but if I wanted to, I could unmute them and now you can hear the audio. I'll also come down and mute the music tracks just so you can't hear those. So there you can hear there's like a little waterfall in the background. And if you were to look very closely at the timeline here, you'll actually see that there's a slight audio waveform on the very bottom of those clips. And if we wanted to adjust that audio, we could grab this little line, increase the audio, or decrease the audio. We'll touch on that stuff more later in the music and sound effects training. Up after that, you have this very basic eyeball control. When you click on it, it's just going to hide everything in that layer. We can enable it back on. And then last but not least, we have the lock track. And when you lock a certain layer, it just means you can't make edits to it. I can't come and click on the end of this track and make any trim adjustments. If I hit Control B to try and make a split, nothing happens. It just protects that layer to make sure you don't accidentally change anything or delete a clip, for example. So that is the timeline in a nutshell. The next window we need to talk about is this one in the top right. Now, when you have nothing selected, that's going to show you your project settings. So we have our project name, where the project is stored, the aspect ratio of our video, the resolution, the color space that our clip was filmed in, the frame rate of the project, and a few other settings that aren't really that important. If you ever wanted to change any of these settings, all you have to do is come down to Modify, select it, and now we can change the name of our project. So I could call this Italy Hike. We'll always keep our media in the original place. If we wanted to change the ratio, like into 16:9 to be a YouTube video, we could do that here. As far as our project resolution goes, I usually leave that in the adapted setting. Our project frame rate is really important. We want to make sure this aligns with what we shot our clips in. So if we filmed at 24 frames per second, or we know we want to edit at 24 frames per second, we'll leave it there. But you could also do 30 frames per second. That's a common frame rate for social media. And then we'll leave our color space exactly where it is. That's just going to match exactly what the color space of our first clip that we dragged into the timeline was. And then as far as this setting right here, by default, it's normally turned off, but I'd recommend you copy me here and you just turn that setting on. It's going to come into play in future videos. Then last but not least, another really helpful feature here, if you come over to the Performance tab, if you have a computer that's slowing down and it's laggy and the video playback is choppy, you can actually turn this proxy setting on and it will help increase the speed at which your computer can actually edit the video. So definitely something to keep in your back pocket. For the time being though, I'm going to leave it off because my computer is doing just fine, and we'll hit save. So that's how to see your project settings and make any changes. But if we actually select one of these clips, you'll now see that this window has changed and it brings up a bunch of tabs that allow us to make changes to that clip that we have selected. So in the video tab, we have some very basic controls like our scale. I can change that. We also can see the position and rotation. If I change the position, you can see it just changed the X right there. I can move this around pretty easily without actually having to touch any of these. We can rotate our clip. Lots of features in here that we'll get into further on in this editing course. As of right now, you don't really need to get overwhelmed by these. And on top of that, we also have some audio controls, some speed controls if we wanted to create slow motion, some pre-built animations that we can use, and then the color adjustment tab if we wanted to do any color correction, color grading, or use any LUTs, which are color grading presets. All valuable tools that we'll cover later on. You don't need to get overwhelmed by it now. Moving on from that window, actually, we have this central window here, which is the player. It's obviously going to let you preview your videos, but we also have some controls here. In the bottom right, for example, we can change the ratio. So we could change it to 16:9. If we were editing a YouTube video, that would be great. We could also take the scale of this clip, increase it, and now it will actually fit into that 16:9 aspect ratio. However, by zooming in on that clip, we've effectively reduced the resolution and it won't be quite as clear as it was before. So I try not to zoom in that much on my clips. But either way, we'll hit Command Z a couple times to go back to the way we were. Now, moving on from that button, we have this right here, which allows us to play our video back in full screen, which is pretty cool. And as far as the basic functionality of this app is concerned, that's really all you need to know. There are some more tabs that we're going to cover like audio, text, stickers, effects, transitions, all that stuff. But if you're just getting started, this is probably enough. You can actually download the clips that we played around with in this video, and you can rewatch this training, do exactly what I did just to get yourself familiar with how things work. But we're going to continually get more advanced and create all of the videos that you want to create, like short form, YouTube content, commercials, travel videos, all that fun stuff. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.